Honorable representatives of the European Commission, Honorable Minister of Culture and National Identity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 2 days, 7 panels, and over 30 speakers from all over Europe make up this meeting that will undoubtedly trigger discussions and debates regarding circulation of audiovisual works, co-production ecosystem, availability of funds to support co-productions, blockchain technology, and many more. I would like to very much thank the European Commission and the Romanian Film Center for supporting me.
I want to say welcome in Romania for this very important meeting.
We need to involve these wonderful people that I met a few days ago, which decide about co-productions at an earlier stage. And I had this idea for a long while, and I was trying all the time to push it for our CNC. Most of the national projects end up by looking for international funding in co-producing. Maybe it would be a better idea if we have them already translated from the beginning and invite some of these international experts in having an opinion about the quality of these projects already on the stage of the national selection. We see a lot of films which are not very good. And you ask yourself, how are the films financed and for whom do we make them? Whenever somebody is offering, for example, quality services that you don't have in your mother country, like for example in Romania, we do not have a mixing facility, good. It's always good to work with some sound crews from somewhere else. That's a good thing. But some of the screenplays start having foreign characters so that they can create a co-production, which is not good for film. I think that it's a wonderful thing that we focused a lot in the last 25 years in Europe in producing, and we got a system that works well. And today we are capable of producing a lot of films, but actually the life of the film starts after the film is finished. We try to screen to 18 years old children when they can buy a ticket at cinema, or at 16, films made by people who know something about the French New Wave when they know. But we do not understand that these kids were naturally educated by the kind of cinema that they watched from age 2 to age 16, and that's a very different freedom. We should be able of having a common policy for cinema and for culture. We need to have this bigger picture in which to understand why do we do this and how should we do it to be more effective for the future generations.
Thank you very much for inviting us to this presentation on co-production. For those of you who don't know us, the European Audiovisual Observatory comprises not only European Union member states, but we are part of the Council of Europe, so we also include other European countries such as Turkey, Russia, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, etc. And we are supposed and we are expected to provide independent, accurate, relevant and reliable information on the film and audiovisual industry in Europe from the legal and the economic and market perspective. What is very important is that the work is co-owned by the different co-producers. So if one of the producers of the film is only an investor, is only a financier, then we cannot call that co-production. In that case, we are talking about co-financing. The difference is that in the case of co-production, all co-producers co-own the work, and therefore they are entitled to the revenues, of course, in proportion to their share of contribution to the film. One of the key legal tools for co-production in Europe is the Council of Europe Convention on Cinematographic Works, as opposed to some bilateral and multilateral agreements. This convention focuses only on cinematographic work. Now, in the case of the convention, for multilateral co-productions, so 3 or more countries, none of the co-producers can bring less than 5% of the budget to the project, and none of the co-producers can bring more than 80% of the budget to the project. For the case of bilateral co-productions, these figures are 10% for the minimum and 90% for the maximum. And then again, as I mentioned before, it's capital, and this is something that the convention guarantees, that the co-production has a joint ownership by the producers, of course, in proportion to their level of involvement in the film. We have the financial reasons. Let's say a project aims to have a high budget, so it's in principle easier if we get together co-producers from different countries to raise the money. Then there are the artistic reasons. There are elements from the culture from different countries, then it would be fully justified to have a co-production. And then we have the markets. Co-producing between different countries gives, in principle, an easier access to these markets. And we came to the figure that 72% of the films, the European films awarded, were international co-productions.
Before a film can be visible to the audience, it needs to be visible in the industry. The distributor needs to hear about your film to license it, or a sales agent. We need to help the industry to scale up and to be more present at a European level and at a global level. And we want to therefore put more focus on distribution and promotion. Festivals play a big role in film education and in making films visible, promoting them so that it may be more widely distributed. The Creative Europe programme, media programme, of course, is open to all member states of the European Union. And this means that we also want to help all member states of the European Union participate and get the most out of their participation, whether financially or in terms of networks. If you're not a majority producer in a co-production, as a minority co-producer, you can also gain very valuable experience, networks, which will help you build your capacity in the future.
Roberto, let's get now to be a bit more technical.
So 30 years ago, we had a lack of films that would circulate. And the idea was, therefore, to make enough films to fill the screens so that Europeans could watch themselves in the mirror somehow. Today, 30 years after, we're making in Europe twice as many films, more or less, than in the US. If we're talking about numbers in terms of success in the box office, and in general terms, the ability of European films to generate revenues, that's a different story. What we should be doing is making sure that we make better films in terms of quality. And what is better films? What does it mean, quality? For us, imagine that we try to square the circle that is making films that are original, innovative, relevant, but they do have an audience. And that's Christian Mungiu was saying this before, that's the whole difficulty.
Actually, I must say that I was very pleased to hear Christian Mungiu also before, because actually he said all my points. So you can, I must say that, of course, you're also a distributor, and you were also president of the association actually some years ago, so I guess that we can share easily ideas. We need a good concept. And that's the first thing. And a good concept can certainly be improved by co-production, because as also Roberto was saying, then you have several levels of discussion that may help to make a concept also stronger. Then you have also a distributor that can be involved, which is also true for local film. But I mean, then maybe you have more discussion that are possible, again, to help the film being released properly, where we have nice initiative, private initiative, but still supported by the funds, that are actually making the link between school cinemas and distributors and films, so that kids can, schools receive enough material to work on films with the kids, and it works incredibly well. It's really, really incredible. Sometimes actually a film lives there.
Petar, you're running an organization called Co-Production Research Network, and I know that your main role is about sharing, and I know you also recently published a book about co-productions, so if you can share a bit with us your outcomes, and again, talking about change and about what has to change if we deal about co-productions, like what's your take on it?
We founded Co-Production Research Network because we were frustrated by the lack of data. Because as a researcher in film policy, for example, you can find only officially published data by the film funds, for example, or by the Audiovisual Observatory. And it's not enough. Those data are already filtered by those institutions because they focus on good things. They never take into account projects that were rejected and why they were rejected, only the success stories. There is also big frustration among general audience because there is no VOD platform on the European level.
We need to understand that VOD is not going to be useful as long as we do not have a European policy against piracy. We can't have an European VOD as long as we pour this water into a bucket having 100 holes. It's a way of spending money completely irresponsibly. We have to find a solution, given the fact that as much as we speak about European common values, we have 27 languages in this common Europe. You won't be able to have a Lithuanian film popular everywhere because of this language barrier. This is it. But then we need to try and stop this kind of losing of attention through piracy and invest a lot into the promotion of these values, because if we simply are going to place all these films on a VOD without any kind of promotion, nobody will watch a film about which they haven't heard anything. We need to start from the situation if we want to change something.
What I've seen, though, during that 30-year period is a huge evolution and a constructive progress in the way European films are made. And the key to that, as far as I can see, has been the emergence of creative independent producers who are not just financial producers, but are creatively involved in the projects and are able to engage with colleagues in other countries. And the bottom line is that films get made because people like working with each other. And so that's why we need all these workshops and the fantastic work that's been done through the media program with programs like ARVE and ACE and the script development programs that I've been involved with. I would hope that enough attention is given not only to distribution and promotion, but also to development and training, because what are you going to distribute and what are you going to promote if you're not able to develop it properly? What has been learned has been the vital importance of spending enough time on developing the project so that you can maximize the potential of it. And probably there are still too many films getting made before they are really ready for the market, and more time needs to be spent on the development, but that requires more investment from producers.
You cannot promote a film that is not good. You can try, but it won't work. If you want a film to be good, we said that this morning, there should be more money invested into script writing and development. It's only with that that you will be able to have a very strong movie that will be able to travel better. So we want to have the Film Fund think about the fact of not only investing in production, but investing more into development and writing. The second thing is that you should ask from the very beginning, who is this film for? What is the target audience? We've talked about it in the morning. The idea is not to say, this is the target, I will make a film for this target, but I'm making my film and I'm thinking about who I'm talking to. It's very important. And it should be part of the discussion from the very beginning with the producer, the director, the scriptwriter, and the distributor. And the third is that promotion should be thought about from the very beginning with the distributor, with the producer, with the Film Fund as well, because it's something that cannot wait until the film is finished. It's too late. So you have to do it from the very beginning. The second recommendation is, of course, dealing with cinema theaters. So we know that the theaters have managed to find ways to remain competitive through investment in technology and so on, but it's not enough. Also, the cinemas do have to have actions, innovative activities in order to attract the audience. Have the director there, have the crew, have the producer to talk with the people, with the audience, to engage a debate about the subject, about how the film was made. It's important to have a little plus, a little something that will bring the audience go to the cinema. And also, that's where young people can go, with the school, with their parents. It's really the place where you can actually teach them that there is something else than American movies. Even though American movies are great, what you need to teach them in theaters is that first, there is an alternative, there is something else, and second, you can see it in great condition. So that's the idea. And also, one of the recommendations was to enhance the complementarity between theaters and the VOD platforms.
I realized that we are somehow 3 steps behind the music business. Almost everybody here is paying a subscription to a music platform. And what's happening with a music platform is that as soon as a song is released, it's immediately on a platform. It's immediately available. And not only that it's immediately available, but you find there music from all periods. In the film, if you want to see a film that was released, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you can hardly find it.
You want to be on Netflix, but if you are on Netflix and just thrown there without being curated, like the films on Mubi, for instance, are curated and really highlighted and put it on the front window, then you are lost. And also I want to mention one thing regarding the support for distribution that Creative Europe Media Program is giving. And there, when we go to the support, my impression is that something is not functioning for the moment there, because the films that are supported in the first place are the let's call it mainstream art house films. Mainly, most of the films in the selective scheme are English-speaking films. I mean, there are films that are traveling no matter what. Big budgets, you will be surprised how rare a film coming from the small circulation languages main territory is getting the support for distribution.
Luckily, Europe gave me the tools, because the tools were EAVE tool. I'm really, really grateful I did it in 2010. Without it, I wouldn't have been able to handle my production. I'm really grateful to them. I had a Belgian art director, a Norwegian and an Italian background artist. It was a co-production with France, Belgium and Romania, and I had 5 small studios working on it. So and all things are organically connected to what I'm doing. So in a way, I say I can defend them.
First, as a distributor, when I started, we didn't have any support for Eurimage or media. It was Romania was just Romania. We were not even part of Eurimage. So we succeeded to continue, and hopefully now we have a great support from media. And that's the first change, because okay, at the beginning, 20 years ago, there were not as many cinemas as we have now, and as many screens, but there were fewer movies distributed. There were no Romanian movies distributed, and the market changed a lot, because now the majors, they distribute almost 4 or 5 movies per week, and we have it's very hard to, as a mainly European film distributor, to distribute your films in a market where there are no art house cinemas.
Could you please just tell me in a nutshell, how do you look at a movie? How do you judge it?
I do what I want. I watch a movie, and if I like it, and if it's not too expensive, I buy it and I try to distribute it. Sometimes we also pre-buy movies, like for instance Almodovar. I don't even have to read the script for Almodovar, for Lars von Trier, because I know that I like their films, and it will be a pleasure to distribute it.
Just about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And at the beginning, it was supposed to be Romanian spoken film. Then a French producer, had problems financing the film at that point. And he tried to convince me that if we change the language, he will probably be able to collect the money. And I said no, knowing that every time I've seen in my life a film which was geographically happening outside the French-speaking territory but spoken in French, it didn't work. And some years later, an American producer wanted to make the film, and he told me, is it all right with you if we do it in English? And I said yes. And you will ask me why. I said no to French and yes to English. Well, because it's simple, because English has a kind of movie international appeal to all audiences in the world, and the convention involved by the use of the English language is universally accepted.
Yes, it is a problem when you speak about the commercial life of a film. Mm-hmm. But it only depends on the type of film you want to do. If you're focusing on a film that it's the creativity and the way of the storytelling is what is most important for you, then I think that the authentic language might be an advantage and not a disadvantage. It all has to do with what kind of film we're trying to do. In 2016, 25% of our films was co-production. 2017, it was 35%, and it goes higher. That the film co-production and the subject of co-production is very important, because the moving images is the #1 factor that changes our lives in today's everyday life.
My duty is to produce films that will be very successful in the country of origin, but in the same time will be shown in 23 other countries. And the territories are so different, as Moldova on the one side and Denmark on the other side. Many people think documentaries are niche products. In our chain, we have experience that locally a documentary can beat all American blockbusters. I found quite difficult that our films have it hard to get media production support, because media requires 3 broadcasters on board, and we, although we are bringing European content to 23 countries, we count as 1 broadcaster. I absolutely trust in making events. People like to meet the filmmakers, people like to know the background, and this is the way how to bring the films out and make them live also in cinemas and in different, like we have Kinedoc, like alternative way of distribution.
Touch Me Not is indeed a 5-country co-production. We have Romania as a majority country, then Germany, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, and France. Of course, after winning the Golden Bear, in terms of distribution, that helped a lot. We realized that the distributors need a sort of a narrative for the film, for selling the film to cinemas or broadcasters and so on. I think it's very necessary to allow films to exist beyond the classical distribution time frames, you know, like launch in cinema and then launch on broadcast and then launch on VOD. The more access you give to people, the more windows they have to watch it, the more word of mouth you can create for the film, and you give it the possibility to exist, to be available to people, even they don't rank high numbers in the first month or so.
Our Romanian fund have the possibility to support all the kinds of production. That means co-production, minority and majority co-production. A small statistic shows that in the last 10 years we produced 270 long feature, documentary and animation movie, from which 104 co-production, minority and majority. As you see, around 40% from the total are co-productions. Unfortunately, in our country doesn't exist yet a section especially for minority co-production like in other countries. For improving this minority co-production, is necessary to introduce in our law a special section for minority co-production with the different budget from the main section. First, our issue, it's the insufficient number of cinema halls in Romania. And the second problem, it's the distribution of short and documentary movies. It's very difficult to distribute short and documentary in the cinema halls. And the alternative remains only television or on-demand platform, on internet platform.
Before we had just one call for minority co-productions, and what made a really huge difference was when we, in 2012, decided to have an open call and have that means that we receive applications through the year, but there are 4 rounds of decisions. The second good thing is we decided to have a call which is open to all categories, which is really rare in Europe. So all short and long film are eligible. Animation, fiction, experimental film and documentaries. We wanted to give the opportunity to all categories to be co-produced, and we really wanted to give the opportunity to the young filmmakers who are just starting with their short films to be able to also to co-produce with other countries. The third thing that was really useful was when we started the cash rebate system in Croatia. We decided that 2 schemes can be combined together. So you can apply to receive the public support for co-production schemes, but you can also receive support from the cash rebate system. Regarding the visibility, you have mentioned the digitalization of the cinema. That was a huge project in Croatia. It started in 2011. and now we have like 88 cinemas and 180 digital screens in Croatia. Ministry of Culture co-financed the project with between 60 and 70% of the budget came from them. If you want to have a really good dialogue between professionals, between everybody included in the film sector, and between with public institution and administration ministries, then we also need to put or to invest also in education of the people working in the public institution.
Minority co-production is concerned is more to support the diversity of cinema in the world, and we do that through very selective systems. So of course, when you have a very selective support scheme with something like 10% of the projects only being supported, most people are very disappointed because they are not supported. And so this fund, I think all of you know it, it's Cinéma du Monde. Sorry, it's always in French, Cinéma du Monde. I think it's well known now all over the world, and we receive something like 400 applications every year, and we are able to support only, I would say, between 40 and 50 every year. So it's something like 10% rate of success. So it's low, but it means that when you select a project like that, at the end of the day, you have the cream of the cream. That's a political choice that was made by the French government, the French parliament. We spent almost 5 million euros to support minority co-production through a very selective scheme, and which is very important is that it's not only official co-productions. Through this system, provided the budget is below 2.5 million euros, films from all over the world, even from countries with which we don't have a cooperation agreement, are eligible. And it's the political choice also is to give subsidies, and it's really soft money. It means that only half of the subsidy has to be spent in France or on French expenses, because we don't want to force the foreign co-producer to spend money in France just for the sake of it, because it could jeopardize the artistic integrity of the film. So most of the time it's only part of the post-production which is made in France, and there's no obligation of French cast, French crew, French whatever. And so in 2015, along with some other funds which are the World Cinema Fund in Germany, the ITFA and the Uberbals Fund in the Netherlands, and the Torino Film Lab in Italy, we have applied to a call for applications launched by the European Commission, which aimed at supporting the co-production funds for the production part and for the distribution part. So we haven't applied in the CNC for the production fund. So ACM, it's only with French money. From the CNC and from the Institut Français, which is a branch of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But we have applied to set up a new scheme for distribution in the framework of the call of course of applications launched by the European Commission. At the end of the day, it's no wonder why in France we release more than 700 films every year, because there were a lot of distribution supports.
Well, if you have looked at the data that was presented by the observatory this morning, you've seen that Belgium is first one in terms of co-production. We've been co-producing for so long that it's part of the DNA of the producers to go for co-production. It's like more than 85% of our films are co-produced. And it's from the beginning. We have co-production agreements that do not allow financial co-production. So we really try to have artistic co-production. So we have, in my fund, we have a line for artistic co-productions. We are overloaded with projects, which is quite interesting, because what we want by supporting co-productions is not only to support foreign directors, but also to support a reciprocity relationship between the producers. So we really try to encourage those projects that will build a relationship between a Belgian producer and a foreign producer on a long-term basis. So we have that in my fund, but then there are other funds in Belgium. You have the regional funds where foreign films can go to, and you have, as Michel said, the fiscal incentive. And you can pile everything up. So you can get quite a lot of money for foreign films in Belgium. In terms of distribution, we have a support scheme for distribution in Belgium of foreign films, the ones that we supported in, cultural support. And then we also have, structural support for our distributors that do have to have a big percentage of European films in their portfolio. So it's always very important to have this idea that we don't have as many Belgian films. So when we support a distributor, we support a distributor with a European portfolio. We're not going to support it only on the Belgian question because it has no point. So we support the theatrical release of foreign films in Belgium, and as I said this morning, we support also the release when we have a Belgian film outside our territory. Then we pay for the mobility of the cast and crew, and then we also pay for, if they have an event or a press conference or something like that.
Right now I'm doing my first co-production as a minority co-producer. It is a co-production between Bosnia, who is the main producer, Romania, Croatia, Slovenia and Montenegro. So we are 5 co-producers in this joint venture. And to me, it all happened, as I said, by doing. For example, with this co-production with Bosnia, I got from the very beginning. I was there from the development phase. Actually, after they had the first draft, I got on board a bit unofficially.
You are a minority producer,
yeah,
roughly like 10%, 20%?
Roughly like 17, but my involvement was a bit, let's say, higher than just being a co-producer from artistic or financial reasons. I had a talk with the director and the producer, and I asked them, what's next, what would you like to do? And they didn't have a very clear clue, so I asked, why don't you apply to media? And they said, well, we don't know exactly how to do this, so I offered to make the application. Since co-production means working with someone for a period between 2 or 5 or 6 years, it's almost like a kind of a marriage which you wouldn't like to get apart from, even after the project is finished.
And we all have in our states public funding, and this always gives us quite a lot of questions, Is the funding given out in the right way? What are the rules? Do we follow these rules? How the rules are changed? And therefore, if you think about it, the heads of the film funds, they are the most lonely people. I know that there has been said that, we are very powerful and we can make you raise or fall, but it's not really so. If you think about the heads of the funds, we get the pressure from filmmakers, as we heard in the morning, and we get also pressure from our ministries to be right, to be fair, to be transparent. And there is no place on earth where the head of the film funds could go and discuss the issues between themselves. And that's why we got this idea that maybe there is a need to discuss our policy making, our distribution rules, how we give out the support, how we deal with the film education, how we do training. Do we need to train do we need to have the continuous training part of the film funds? Maybe there needs to be a place where we can discuss all these issues. And we put together this kind of working group or think tank where all the film funds voluntarily could join and discuss the issues that are important to them. everything what has been said in these discussions got out, and people were quite interested also what we are discussing and how do we see the future of European film, or what is European film as such. And therefore we thought, okay, we put together one document, what can be distributed to our stakeholders, partners, commission, and we can discuss and get some feedback. And it was quite a hard process to get 10 points, but we all agree on. But somehow we managed, and we did present the document actually a couple of years ago in Tallinn. But it's a living document, and it keeps developing in time as societies are changing, as our funding policy is changing, as the technology is changing, so we keep it alive. And we get together like 3-4 times per year, and we kind of rewrite this document or make it better. That mainstream film should be supported the same way as a niche product, as the smaller films. And the idea was that we should do big films. We should be ambitious, you know. We should do the science fiction and go mad. And, you know, if the film funds are happy to invest like millions into this, that we should allow it. Sometimes we're not bold enough, or we just think, oh, it's too mainstream, and, you know, it might even compete with American films, so we shouldn't really go there. So we shouldn't really think this way. We should be really bold and let our creators again to take us there where they want to go. And this point or this sentence came from there.
Joël, please share with us some outcomes and conclusions.
You explained the workshop very well. So, yes, in fact, it's an organization. It's organized by Focal. I suppose that many of you know Focal, the Swiss structure that is specialized in professional training. And the idea of, as you explained, was really to have a place where people working within the funds, and not only the CEO, but Edith came once, not only the CEO, but the people in charge of the development or production of distribution, depending on the topic of the workshop, could come and share their experience, but also be inspired by the experience of others, and also to help them to think out of the box. We have main team. Last year, it was about the collaboration among film funds, and based on that team, we structured the workshop in modules, and each module is introduced by a case study.
It comes at a time where it's more important than ever to both defend and empower cultural diversity. So one activity we have launched for producers is that on our website we are listing a lot of case studies, co-productions, and the focus is on international co-production supported by minimum 2 cinematographic members, and in some cases it's free. Actually, there's a lot of the films being selected for Cannes and Berlin which have been supported by free regional film funds. So why do I say this? This is to demonstrate this about that the financing can be combined, and we do not want to harmonize funding schemes and rules, because then you can no longer combine the funding. And I mention this because I know some stakeholders from the previous panels was mentioning that as an idea to make it easier for producers, but it will not, because these films will not exist then, because you will not get them financed. From our perspective, we would love to give more details on the film financing and so on, but the producers are a little reluctant to allow us to write this information. Because what we normally say is that once you have seen 10 financing plans, based on the European co-production model, you basically know how to put the financing together, and then of course it comes back to the project, the story and the talent and the package you have.
When you are in a co-production, it actually pushes the creative process. It pushes to think more clearly, more thoroughly about how your story is going to be relevant to different audiences in different countries, in different contexts. And so perhaps this actually is a stimulus for quality as well. 60% of non-national European audiences are actually captured by co-production, which is a very striking success rate. In Romania, it was mentioned that there is a particular problem of not having enough cinemas, not having enough theatres not having enough screens. And that is an objective constraint, of course, in making films available. Another issue was data. There's not enough data about which films are working, which films are reaching audiences, which films are available where. And of course, on our side at European level, we are launching this year the directory on European films, which was promoted by Commissioner Gabriel, and we hope that will help to address, at least in part, this issue.
Blockchain is a database. Blockchain has also another name. It's called DLT, Distributed Ledger Technology. And the word ledger, I would say, kind of says it all. What you can put on the blockchain is this database that you can put any type of information. With the blockchain, essentially it's this network of computers, which is the ledger, and every transaction ever made is stored not in one place, but on hundreds of thousands of computers across the world. And that makes it very fast, it makes it efficient and secure. So don't think of this as this very kind of complicated coding program that no one understands. The mission of the people who are building the database is to make it very accessible so that everyone can join this network and that everyone can access the information on the ledger.
Roberto, with you, can you tell us a couple of things where you consider there is a lot of friction at the moment, and then hopefully in the course of the conversation we come to conclusions?
This technology is mind-blowing in my opinion. The idea that a certain number of people can access the same information without having to send it to each other through emails, through ordinary mail, but having a set of people accessing a secured information is, for the business of co-production, already an added value. That is, for sure, important. It is scary on the other side because we do not know exactly how it works.
I'm all in. I mean, we are pragmatics in general, sometimes poets, but pragmatic poets. If that works, it's just good news. Because right now, people complain, or producers complain about bureaucracy, that it's so complicated to report and to I think the main problem is that every fund, and sometimes we have 22 different sources of financing. They have different rules, different paperwork, different. It's a nightmare for the delegate producer and for the co-producers. It's really very tough.
I would say definitely the aspect of being vertically integrated from exhibition, so from VOD platforms to distribution, to sales, to marketing costs, to the actual collection for all of the stakeholders, having something virtually integrated and with different layers of privacy, but all put on a digitized automatic system, eliminating human errors, that's kind of where I think the value really is.
Torio Film Lab was born in 2008, and his activity involved all the steps of the creation of a feature film, from the script to the distribution. The activity is based on two pillars: the training programs and the funding. The training for the first and second feature film, on the screenwriting and in the production. The programs are Script Lab and Feature Lab. And also since 2016, it is also focused, the training program, on the TV series. We have always focused the project that we selected in the program of the Torino Film Lab to create connection and co-productions.
Co-production, it's important for the Romanian films. I'm happy that we even co-produce with our neighboring countries, Croatia, Hungary. And at the beginning, co-production meant some post-production, but also money for production. Our image, of course, is very important. We look always to the outside market in order to fulfill our gap, to get extra financing and to get distribution for our films.
We do have, as many of you might know, talent programs inside of Europe. We have in Berlin the program called Shooting Stars, where we present acting talent from throughout Europe, and it included many talents from Romania too.
From his stars, by the way.
His stars and other stars.
And other stars, yeah.
And we also have casting directors joining us in from Romania. We have a program for producers, and we have a number of producers who participated in our initiatives inside of Europe called Producers on the Move, where we bring together 20 European producers, not as a co-production market, but more as a networking event. And if you have a project, of course, you talk about the project, but you also learn about the opportunities. We are promoting European cinema outside of Europe, and this is one thing our focus is at. We have.
When you talk about co-production, it's sort of boring. You know, everybody knows about it, everybody has done it, it has no interest. But to be honest, what is very funny is that co-production that gets back again. So as a sort of, as we see that films who are co-produced travel better, make more audience. If there is any audience, we'll talk about it later. And this is really our core business. I mean, it's my core business as a life. I produced around 80 feature films. They have all been co-productions. I mean, there's not been one which was only financed by one country. So I know a little bit about it, and it's also what we do at Jave. But what we do mainly, and there I wanted to pick up some of the words which came out yesterday, or by Christian Mungiu, or by other people, is that he pointed out the education. When the directors come in and they see how we work around the table on their projects in general, what within, then they say, oh my God, they changed their eyes also on who producers are. And I think that's super important. In the same time, also the producers change on the directors because they talk about each other's fears, how we can go through development. So I believe, fundamentally, to make it very, very clear, I believe in sharing and in networking and in talking. It's the only way how we will get out of all the challenges that will come.
The co-production serves the film, not the other way around. You have a concept, an idea that you develop with a scriptwriter, and then you try to ask yourself, how can I realize it?
Co-productions and the structures that allow co-productions to happen have, in a certain extent, also become a self-sustaining system. So I think it's rightful to ask whether all these co-productions are actually needed to support those films, or whether they actually support the producers in the process, and whether all the co-production markets are really needed.
From EAVE, for instance, it really changed my life, for sure. And I encourage each and every person that is involved in the film business to go and share the emotion, the variety, and the strong spirit of filmmaking and of creating a film.
I should also mention there are other schemes that are also very successful that I'm lucky enough to be associated with. One of them is Script East, which has been going for 13 years now. We've developed films from Romania and other countries. 40 films have been produced and gone to festivals, been distributed. I've also recently been connected with the Midpoint program based in Prague, which is doing some wonderful workshops and has a TV series side to it. And this is all thanks to support from Creative Europe and the media program over the years that has managed to invest in the start of the projects. And if we have an ecosystem, an infrastructure in Europe, we need to look after the distribution and the promotion, but we need to be there at the start as well
There are also newcomers, and for them it was really such encouraging days to have you all here and to have access to your knowledge and to your success. And also I can see on their smile that they are going back to their house and they are starting new projects, because I'm never thinking there are too many films, there are not enough.
We will make sure that all the conclusions and valuable input will be presented by the Romanian presidency on the Council of European Union. And in the end, I would like to thank you all for joining us, and also I would like to thank the team, my team, that helped us organize all the event.
The conference fostering European cooperation through co-production is organized by the Ministry of Culture and National Identity through Project Management Unit with the support of the Romanian Film Center. Thank you, European Commission, for the support you offered. I'm confident that it will be a great contribution to the Romanian presidency. Thank you.